calico fabrics reproduced from the 1930s are so bright and cheery, they make you feel happy just looking at them. And they're especially fun for me in this old basket. You know, I got it 50 years ago when I was a flower girl in a wedding with my sister Patty. Our project for today, Salvage Sally, will put a smile on your face, especially when you make it out of the reproduction fabrics too. Now the easy technique will make you even happier because we're doing this applique with fusible interfacing, no needle turn and no freezer paper. I got the design from an old newspaper advertisement that appeared in the Oregonian, and they offered the pattern for just 11 cents. The caption reads, "Be a thrifty Salvage Sally and rescue gay bits of fabric from your scrap bag to make these flower basket appliques for a quilt. An inexpensive way to brighten a bedroom." Well, it's true. It's brightening my day. Let's rescue our scraps. The newspaper advertisement said to make the baskets out of a solid fabric and then make the flowers out of a calico print. But I just could not resist these beautiful basket weave fabrics. Oh my gosh, 9 or 10 to choose from. So I selected my 5 favorite, and I already have the fusible interfacing pattern paired up with the piece of fabric. Now, I really love to have my basket on point. This is what it looks like when it's on point. You can see the way the weave is going. So this is my pattern, and I'll show you how to do it. You need to just place your pattern on the diagonal. Let me just pull out a piece right here. So here is the up and down of the weave, but I want it on the diagonal. So just take your basket, place it smooth side up on top. Oh, how about a pin right in the center of that? And then you can just go ahead, cut right around that, and it's ready for sewing. Okay, now, I love the flower. It's so easy to do. The flower is actually, you need to have 2 flowers per basket. Easy. So the pattern is actually a double flower. Pair it up with the fabric. You can just sew around the line. Oh, gentle curves. But see the dash line right down through the middle indicates that you cut the piece in half and you end up with 2 flowers per piece of fabric. The leaves are the same. Oh, this is just smart. This should be smart, Salvage Sally, because the leaves are also double leaves like this, so that when you trim and turn them, you get 2 exactly like this. But the fun thing about this is the fabric, because it's variegated. In one piece of fabric, it goes from the light into the medium into the dark, so that you get the variety in the leaves just from one piece. But the sewing of the leaves is even more fun. Let me show you. Just take your piece of fabric, and you always place it right side up. Take your pattern, place that right on top. Oh, these are all pre-printed fusibles, but you could go ahead and just trace your lines yourself right on the interfacing. It's non-woven fusible interfacing. Well, you only need to have 1 pin. You've got the whole bunch of them. Okay, so just stick some pins through. Now, when you stitch, you use a tight stitch, like 20 stitches to the inch. And the leaves are set up in the pattern so that they're continuous. Let's just start right here, needle down, use a plastic foot. Now this one has a clear plastic foot with a little bit of metal on the bottom, so that it just slides right along there. Well, when you get to here, use needle down, then you can just pivot. I did one leaf on the curve, just go right into the tip of the second one, but you can see the patterns are all in a line, so you just go continuously from one to the next. Ooh, is this fast? So that you actually, once you sew down one side, just turn it around and sew back up the other side. Well, why not if we're going to get this quilt done in a day? I'll show you how to trim and turn it on this piece that I have here, because it is ready to go. So once you've done your sewing, you can see all my red stitching. You just take very sharp 4-inch scissors and trim 1/8 inch away. And get up close. Oh, and you go up close so you don't have to do any little nicks in this. Let me just trim that off and cut around here. Now you could go in close right here, but you'll see once you're done, get that trimmed. Ooh, good. Just take this, get rid of it. Now, right here, there's a dashed line, so you just cut it in half. Now you've got your 2 leaves and turning tools. You need to have a drinking straw. It needs to be a large drinking straw, and just open that bottom of the leaf right now. Put your straw into it and turn it so the fabric is right in the end of the straw. Then take the ballpoint on the bodkin. This is called a ballpoint bodkin. Just push it right into the straw. Whoops! Oh my gosh, went right through. Didn't mean to do that. But doesn't matter. Just run the ball right around in the inside of the leaf. And then to make it have a really crisp point on the outside edge, just take your stiletto, pull that out, so that you get a crisp leaf. Take a tool called a wooden iron and then just crease it down around there. Make it nice and flat, always pushing the fabric around the outside edges. Then I just want to do a quick stuffing on this. 100% cotton batting. Just use your leaf as your pattern. Trim it exactly the same size as your leaf. And then the next tool, gosh, we're just full of tools, aren't we? The next tool that is really handy to use is called hemostats, or some people call them surgical scissors. But if you just grab hold of the tip and you can just slip that right in there. Oh, perfect. Well, let me get all of my pieces turned and I'll show you how to fuse them in place. I salvaged my scraps, trimmed my pieces, turned them, and now I'm placing them on the 8-inch background squares. Now there's 5 of them, and I had them positioned exactly as they will be in the quilt. And I'm putting the baskets, dispersing the colors throughout so that I actually put the darkest colors on the 2 opposite ends, and then the medium baskets are running right down through the middle. Now the flowers are great fun too, because you have 2 of them and you want to spread them out throughout the quilt. So when you cut them in half, you have this raw edge, and I'm just going to tuck this one right here. How about that? And then this piece, I'm just going to go over opposite and tuck that one in. Now I'm working with the leaves, putting the 3 different values in one block. The lights, the mediums, and the darks, and this is where the best fun is. Oh, there's no rules. You can just tuck them in however you want them to be. Just position them and play with them. Make sure that the colors are evenly dispersed throughout the quilt. Looking good, huh? Well, we're ready to press it now, and especially if you lay it out in a table, I like to just slip it onto a square up ruler, and you can go ahead and use an iron, but the electronic press is absolutely the best for this applique work. So just slip it off your ruler, put it right on the bed of the press, make sure everything's in order. Now, with the iron or with the press, steam and mist help. So you just pull this down, shut it. Oh my gosh, 100 pounds of pressure going right onto that little Salvage Sally. She's screaming, "Let me out of here!" And then the beep will tell you, lift it up. Take it out. Ah, it is just perfect. So it's fused down, ready for sewing. Now, you should put a stabilizer underneath because I'm going to go ahead and do a blanket stitch. So just place it on top of a stabilizer, and I'm selecting the buttonhole stitch. And this one is number 14, so I'm just going to go ahead and set it at 14. You can use a colored thread, or something that's going to look really pretty. How about needle down on that? And if any of your fusible interfacing is showing, just take your stiletto and peel it under before you come to it. Okay, let's just go ahead and see what we've got. Locking stitch. All right, you always take your back and forth stitch on the background and you take your bite into your applique. Okay, let me pick up speed here. Keep your fingers light and just keep on turning it right underneath the foot. Okay, and when you pivot, it's best that you pivot when it's on the background or the outside edge of the flower. You go ahead and move forward. Now this is a great time for you to use up all of your leftovers, your nice colors of thread and such. I'm on the inside point of my flower now. My needle is down, so you just raise it and pivot, and then you just continue with your stitches. Now, I recommend that the best thing is to learn the pattern of your stitches so that you can just more or less follow it every little step and stitch of the way. And also, if you would like to give a thicker look to this, although this stitch is just beautiful, you might want to run 2 threads through the same needle, and then you'll get a really heavy stitch that looks just like hand stitching. Oh, that is looking great. All right. So just keep on going around this. You could do it all with one color thread, or you could change the color for each one. But now, I'm just going to stop right in the middle of it. You know me. And I'd like to show you how to put a button on that right by machine. So why don't we just go ahead, take a little bit of glue stick, and take a button. And we want to put it right in the center. Just dab a little glue right there. And just stick your button right on top. Ha-ha. Now, Patty would probably sew this on by hand, wouldn't she? But when you want to do it by machine, all you need to do is just drop your feed dogs. And on this sewing machine, the feed dogs are a little button right down here. I'm going to push the button, and now you can see that it's flat right here. My feed dogs are down, and I'm going to set my machine to a zigzag stitch. All right, let's see if we can do this. This is so much fun with not only your scrap thread, but your scrap buttons as well. Now just go ahead and drop this. This is a clear foot, and you really need to do a little hand turning with your wheel first, just to make sure that you have the right width in it. And I'm going to reduce the width because I sure don't want to break my needle. So I'm just going to hand turn my needle up and down, and then find out what the bite is. And I have it set at 3.5, that sounds good. So once you determine that, then you can just go ahead, by machine, stitch back and forth until you've got that great stitch in there. Oh my gracious, that looks great. Okay, now I'm just going to trim the threads. Got the buttonhole stitch around the flower, got the button sewn right on there. Just need to go back and do the basket, finish all of my stitching, and then I'll show you how to set the whole top together. This quilt top is sewn together in diagonal rows, so I marked them in sewing order. Oh, I don't want to jump up and down and pick them up each time. So this is the first block, number 1, and then this is the second diagonal row, 2, 3, 4, and then this one is number 5. So just go ahead and stack them in that same order so that you can just have one pile right beside your sewing machine. And I already have 2 stacks of lattice. They are cut the same size as the block, 8 inches, and 1 stack of cornerstones. And this one, there's 5 in each stack, and this one is 2 inches wide. Oh, a 2-inch gold square right there. It looks great. Now, you just take the top lattice, flip it right sides together to the cornerstone, take the block and flip it right sides together to the lattice, and then you just assembly line sew. And this is my absolute favorite kind of quilt to put together because it's just continuous assembly line sewing, one after the other. Get that first one done, and then pick up the second stack, and you just go ahead and match the outside edge. I just anchor it. Just take a couple of stitches, butt it right up close, anchor it, and then once you have it anchored, match it on the opposite end, stretch it to meet if you need to, but hold it down and sew right along here. And then once you have the first one done, you keep it in that same order. Now you're going to go ahead and flip this one, which is number 2, right sides together, and then just trail it right behind. After you have all 5 of the blocks in a row, then just clip right after the block. And take this and open it. Take the cornerstone, flip it right sides together to the lattice, and at this seam, you're going to do some wiggle matching. You want to push the seam away from the background, and then on this one, down towards the lattice. It's actually towards the lattice. Get that anchored, and then you just keep on sewing all 5 in a chain, and don't cut them apart this time because I want to show you something really magical. Let me just stitch right down here. I'm at the end of my row right now, and this is the magical part. because when you assembly line sew like that, then they're all chained together, they're in perfect order, and you don't need to use pins. Now that excites me. That's the best part. So just clip apart right now after block number 1 and lay that out, and then clip the second time after block number 4. So I'm going to go right here and clip. That's my whole middle diagonal row. Just lay that one out in order. And then the very last one, row 5, is going to be right here. So now all I need to do is go back and do one more stitch right in between here and this, between these 2 blocks, and then right here between these 2 blocks, and then they will be complete. Now, I also did some sewing on my cornerstones. I added quarter stones on the ends of 4 lattice, and on the 4th lattice, I added a second cornerstone on the opposite side. Now, let me show you how this all goes together. Let's take the first one. This is going to go right here on the end of block number 1. The next one is going to go right on the end of block number 4. And then block number 5 is the tricky one, because we have to put a lattice with 1 cornerstone right here. And we're actually going to surround this whole block with cornerstone, lattice and cornerstone, so that the very last one goes in this position. Let me get all of these rows and lattice sewn together. Now I have some room so I can work. Now take row 1 and push it right into row 2, and you will see lattice and cornerstones around all of those blocks, and just push row 3 up to the middle row, and you'll notice that it's actually missing the lattice and cornerstones in 2 spots. Ooh, no problem. That's easy to do. Just sew a cornerstone to the end of another lattice, one for there, and then one for right here. And once you have those laid out, you need to take a large square for your side triangle. Now it's a 14-inch square. I drew diagonal lines in both directions and then stay stitched on both sides of the diagonal line and cut it into 4s. Okay, so these are the side triangles. Bias is on the inside edge. That's why the stay stitching is there. So take this triangle and turn it like this. That's going to finish that bottom row. This triangle is going to go right into this spot. Now before you can actually sew this whole row together, you need to take and flip this lattice right sides together to the triangle, match up the square right here. Got a tip hanging out right at the top. Sew that along there, and then this will go right onto this row. Same thing over on this triangle. Flip this right sides together to it. Have a square edge, but the tip at the top. Oh-ho! And fold that out. So that would complete that row. Let's get that pushed right up in there. And over it on the side, one more side triangle. And then up at the top, a side triangle. That leaves the corners. And the corners come from 2 8 1/4-inch squares. Once again, draw a diagonal line, stay stitch on both sides of the diagonal line, and then just cut it in half. So that the bias is on the inside, stay stitched, but then the outside edges are all on the straight of the grain. These are the corner pieces. So they're going to go right in here, in each one of the corners. Well, this is looking like a quilt. I'm nearly there. Okay, one more corner. So now all of the rows are laid out. I can just sew the diagonal rows together and put the whole quilt into one top. Now when you do the corner, this is what this upper corner looks like here. Had one sewn already. You take the triangles and flip them right sides together and sew them matching the square edges. When you fold them out, press them out, then the top triangle is going to go right on here. Equal tips on both sides, stitch along here, and then when you fold it out, you can see that there's a generous seam allowance right here. Well, this generous seam allowance is for the folded border. So I've got it all lined up. The folded border is a 1 1/4-inch piece that is folded wrong sides together. And I'm just going to match up the raw edges and sew it on opposite sides with 10 stitches per inch. One here and then whenever I'm done with two opposite sides, not folding it out, trim it off, then comes the remaining two opposite sides, and you just overlap right in the corners. Well, this is looking good. Border's the last thing on this quilt, and it's just a 3.5-inch border, dark blue, one of the same colors of the baskets, and I'm just going to add that to two opposite sides, trim it off, two remaining sides, trim it off. I'm going to layer this quilt and show you some quilting. This is such a charming wall hanging. It is a great 1930s quilt. In fact, I think I'll just hang it in my bedroom. Well, I want to go back and do some machine quilting in the ditch through the lattice and cornerstones. But first, I want to show you how to do some free motion machine quilting right in the corner and side triangles. Now, I made a flower pattern right on the pattern paper. I traced on a flower and two leaves. Then I took the thread out of my needle and I just stitched on the line, perfed the paper, and then I made patterns out of each one of the pieces behind it. That way, you don't have to spend time drawing, tracing all those pattern sheets. It works great. So I'm just going to pin it right in the middle of the corner triangle. Fits perfect. Now, I have my darning foot on my sewing machine, and I'm just going to slip it right underneath here. Now, I drop my feed dogs just like I did whenever I did the button. So let's go ahead, drop the presser foot on there, and let's see if I can get hold of my thread. There it is. Okay, do needle down, needle up. You always want to bring your thread to the top because you don't want it running along behind. And then this particular machine has a lock stitch on it, so you can just go up and down, right in place, and then whenever it's done locking, you just cut off those threads. Now, needle down so that whenever you're moving it, then you always have it in the fabric. Okay, hold your hands in this position and then just step on the gas and make that needle go right on that line. Oh, this is just so much fun. And then whenever you want to stop, go ahead and just turn it like this, reposition your hands, and just stitch right around that flower, creating that design. Well, then I just need to go back. I'm going to go up and do the leaf. I need to just go back, do my machine quilting, add my binding, and this quilt will be so cute. Let me see. Went the whole way around. Just take that off there. So the pattern is stitched on. All I need to do is just tear this paper away. Got a great flower. I have some crafts I want to show you how to do. One of my favorite pieces of jewelry to wear is this button necklace. Well, it's lightweight, and with all these colors, it just seems to match everything. So dig into your button box and just have a ball. Collect 160 buttons, 1/2 inch or 5/8 inches in size. Now, any needle will do, but you do need some strong thread like quilting thread or maybe even buttonhole twist. Now, you should double it and then knot it on the last button. Well, then take and look and see. See how it alternates every other button. Right now, the one that is on the end is wrong side up. So the next one you pick up should be placed right side up and just sew as if it were a button from the bottom up and down, and just slide it on and actually overlap it on the last button. Okay, so this one was right side up. The next one's got to be wrong side up. So hold it in your fingers, wrong side up, and just think like you sew a button from the bottom through one and then up again, and just slide it right up there. Not too tight so that you don't bunch it up. Now I'm going to pick up one with 4 holes. Okay, this is supposed to be right side up, so just think from the bottom to the top, or from the top to the bottom. Whoa, what am I doing now? From the top to the bottom. There we go. And just slip it right on there. Oh, it's just so much fun to do. Oh, it's so much fun just sitting here beside the 1930s quilts. Now, this first one is called the Boston Commons. You could do this with strips, and it just starts from the center and just works from the center out, forming that square. Oh, wonderful 1930 colors. Now, this basket quilt is one of the Laura Wheeler Alice Brooke patterns. What's so unusual with its piece basket? Now it almost reminds me of an art from a fan or a double wedding ring, and the handle is just so sharp on that, I can't believe it. Well, you have a good time. Rescue gay bits of fabric scraps or buttons and enjoy your craft.